Here is a data set and a number line big enough to handle it. First thing is to plot all your data. Then we can identify the min and the max. That's going to be the bookends of your 5-number summary. Next thing is identify and mark the middle 3 numbers in your 5-number summary, which is the Q1, the median, and the Q3. Now that you have your middle 3 marked, that's the Q1, the median, and the Q3, draw a box around them, label them, and draw a line through that median. This is the box of the box plot. Now draw your whiskers, and all 5 numbers from your 5-number summary should be labeled on your box and whisker plot. The next thing we need is to measure how long the box is, and that is our IQR. Now we need to define if we have any outliers. If we're going to eyeball it, we can kind of see that we don't have any outliers, but we need a mathematical definition. So what we're going to do is take that IQR, the length of the IQR, we're going to multiply it by 1.5, and we're going to extend that length beyond each side of the box. So mathematically what's going to happen is IQR times 1.5, and then whatever number we get, we're going to add that to Q3 and subtract it from Q1. Label the fences. Note that there are no numbers in our data set that are beyond the lower and upper fences. We do not have any outliers. I threw an outlier in there. I just tossed 57 in there. And now let's speed run this with an outlier. So here's your data. Got your min, your max. You see that you have this outlier looking thing right there. You're still going to find your Q1, your median, and your Q3. Draw your box. We're going to draw whiskers. Now we typically draw whiskers depending on what kind of graph you're drawing. You could draw it out to the last one that's not an outlier, which you kind of have to have a little bit of forethought for, or sometimes people draw them all the way out to whatever the last point is and then identify it as an outlier later on. Here's your IQR. It's that long. 1.5 times the IQR for the fence. Put the fences up, and this point that's outlined in red is an outlier because it is bigger than the upper fence. So your max is 57, but your upper fence is at 51.25. And that is how you identify an outlier, if it's beyond the fence in either direction. While my animation is showing the fences, we don't typically draw them on the picture itself. That is a visual cue for you for this video, but it's not typically on there. It is also notable that this Q notation completely makes sense, and then Q0, Q2, and Q4 got renamed with a vocabulary word, and Q1 and Q3 are the remnants of that. But, we're not going to say Q0 or Q naught. We're not going to say Q2. And we're not going to say Q4, we're going to use the vocabulary words instead. If you're using a TI-84 calculator, then sometimes you'll see that Q2 notation, which is just the median. Sometimes you just have the 5-number summary. You'll still plot all of those things. Here's your box, whiskers, IQR, fences, no outliers. And here's one where you do have outliers. If you're using a TI-84, stat, edit, you put your data in there. It's not in order. One of the things you're going to need to do is put things in order so that you can do with Boxplot more easily. So if you go to stat, number 2, which is sort ascending, tell it where your data is, second and 1 for L1. And you go back in there. Everything's in order now. Then another nice thing is that stat, edit, stat, calc. If your info is already in there, then 1 bar stats on L1, you calculate, you get your average right there, standard deviation, all that stuff that we don't care about in this lesson. But if you scroll down, you get your 5-number summary right there. You can look at it by going to stat plot, turning this on. You can choose if you have outliers or not. I'm going to pick this one. Second quit. It's on L1. I'm going to take a look at graph. I will zoom in 9 to let the calculator tell me what it thinks is important. Then you can trace through things. Q1. I think I said earlier that a TI-84 says Q2. That is incorrect. I think my math lab sometimes says Q2. That is your median. Scroll things through things as you need them.